This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Libyan forces loyal to Haftar announced conditional ceasefire. Death toll rises to at least 89 in attack on Niger army base. And we look at Kinshasa's Matonge, a home to world-renowned artists. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live and I'm Karen Roberts in Nairobi. Also coming up in the programme. In business, Nigerian nutritionist gets children to eat by making food fun. And in sports, Louis Oosthuizen back in South Africa for the country's National Golf Championship. We start in Niger, where security sources say the death toll from a suspected jihadist attack has risen to at least 89. The assault on Thursday took place at a military post in China Godra, a town near to the border with Mali. This latest raid against Nigerian forces is in the deadliest in living memory. No group has come forward to claim responsibility, but last month militants with links to Islamic State and Al-Qaeda killed 71 soldiers at another military base nearby. These attacks coincide with efforts by Islamist groups to force the Nigerian army back from its western border with Mali. Attacks in Niger have risen fourfold over the past year, highlighting the deteriorating security situation there. Jihadists are increasingly targeting military camps in Niger, and with each assault they increase their cache of weapons, ammunition and vehicles. Kenya has witnessed attacks from Al-Shabaab militants over the past 2 weeks. The latest attack resulted in the death of 4 Kenyan school children in a gunfight between police and militants from Somalia. Just days before that, Al-Shabaab destroyed 6 aircraft and killed 3 Americans during an attack on Camp Simba in the coastal Lamu County. In response, Kenya has scaled up its security and has employed a multi-agency approach.
Early on a Sunday morning, the first Sunday of 2020, Al-Shabaab militants staged an attack on American forces stationed at a Kenyan military base in the country's coastal region. 3 U.S. Department of Defense personnel were killed at the Manda Bay airfield, which is used by Kenyan and American counter-terrorism forces. The Kenya Defense Forces said 5 attackers had been killed and 3 aircraft destroyed. It was just one in a spate of recent attacks launched by the Al-Shabaab targeting Kenya. The Manda Bay attack came just days after Al-Shabaab militants killed 3 people in a bus on the road between Mombasa and Lamu. 2 days after the attack the military base, the Al-Shabaab struck again. This time they targeted a primary school in Garissa County, near the border with Somalia. 3 Kenyan students and a teacher were killed. The Kenyan military says it also killed 2 attackers as they tried to blow up a telecommunications tower. This pattern of attacks is not new to Kenya, and previous attacks have not been limited to remote areas. Al-Shabaab also previously launched attacks in the capital, Nairobi, claiming the lives of 21 people in the Dusit Hotel attack and over 70 at the Westgate shopping mall. In response, security officers continue to work to secure the country, gathering intelligence and scaling up security measures.
We have beefed up our patrols in the beyond up areas, including our roads, especially with the escort of the PSV convoy right now.
Since 2015, security forces have conducted security operations in Boni Forest, believed to be a hideout and training ground for the militants.
It's not police alone, but all the teams. That is the police, we have the SIPU, we have the R&U, we have even the KNDF and other forces. We are working together. So we sit down, we plan together.
In Lamu, an East African response force of between 50 and 100 troops arrived at the Manda Bay airfield to augment security. Top officials from the US Africa Command also arrived to investigate the incident. Ever since 2011, when Kenya sent its troops to Somalia to fight the Al-Shabaab, its towns and cities have become targets for the militants, and security experts warn that the battle to secure the country is likely to be fought simultaneously within and beyond the country's borders. Bulkisa Nyabwa, CGTN.
Now to Libya. Forces loyal to General Khalifa Haftar have announced a ceasefire starting on Sunday, conditional on acceptance by their rivals. The move comes after Turkey and Russia urged Libya's warring parties on Wednesday to declare a ceasefire amid clashes and airstrikes in a conflict drawing increasing foreign involvement and concern. CGTN's Daniela Pearson with the details.
Speaking in Rome, Libya's UN-backed Prime Minister has conditioned his government's participation in the proposed ceasefire to rival forces withdrawing from the outskirts of Tripoli. The Government of National Accord says it still has a duty to protect Libyans from Haftar's offensive.
Our will has always been to take part in a general conference that could help lead to a political solution. But the attack that took place forced us to take part in these war activities, which we consider to be part of our right to defend the capital. We are willing to accept the initiatives aimed at a ceasefire on the condition that there is withdrawal from the attacking party, but the opposing faction doesn't seem to be willing to do so.
Sarraj's meeting with Italian Premier Giuseppe Conte is the latest diplomatic effort to end the offensive launched by LNA forces. While Sarraj's government welcomed the call, a spokesperson from Haftar's LNA forces said the group's battalions would still try to take control of Tripoli from what he called terrorist groups. Earlier on Saturday, German Chancellor Angela Merkel announced that Libyan peace talks will be held in Berlin. Merkel says that Libya's warring parties will need to play a major role to help find a solution. Merkel also expressed hope that joint efforts by Russia and Turkey could lead to success.
We hope that the joint efforts by Russia and Turkey, especially in view of a ceasefire, will lead to success.
Both Russia and Turkey have been accused of exacerbating the conflict in Libya by giving military aid to its warring parties. Haftar's eastern-based forces launched a fresh offensive in Tripoli in April, sparking a flurry of diplomatic efforts to try and contain the crisis in the North African nation. This week, LNA forces had taken control of Sirte in a rapid advance preceded by airstrikes. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
Well, for more on the situation in Libya, we are now joined by Adel El Bakhrouhi, who is in Cairo for us. Adel, Libyan forces loyal to Haftar have announced a conditional ceasefire. How is this ceasefire going to be maintained following an escalation of fighting around Tripoli?
So the ceasefire has started by midnight, as approved and announced by both rival parties. However, in the first minutes of the day, it didn't seem that the ceasefire will be imposed. We've seen reports of violations from the Libyan National Army from one side, or the LNA forces, saying that the government of National Accord has violated the ceasefire, and another statement from the government of National Accord accusing the LNA of the same. However, the overall situation right now indicates that Tripoli is very calm and much calmer than the usual rocket sounds that residents there used to hear almost on daily basis. No gunfires have been heard or reported during the first hours after sunrise, and it seems that so far it is being implemented. But how long will this last is still a question to be answered, especially that both parties have fueled their supporters and rallied them against the other, accusing them of betrayal, of collaborating with foreign countries against their other Libyan brothers. And therefore, there's a sense of polarization in Libya that cannot be disregarded and cannot be maintained for long unless an agreement could be finally reached if the Berlin talks move forward.
And Adele, so there have been some violations to the ceasefire. How difficult is it going to be to find a unified position with many countries taking sides in the conflict?
So Karen, basically what's happening now is we're going back to square one. So there was a time in Libya where negotiations were going on, where talks between the rival parties in the east and those in the west sitting together and both rejecting a collaborative government. Those in the west refuse to see General Khalifa Haftar part of any transitional government. And at the same time, the strongman and former military general in Qaddafi's army does not want to see any rise or significant role for Islamist parties in the next government in Libya. And that remains the issue. So what's just happened is that the war that has broken after General Khalifa Haftar announced his military offensive against Tripoli has stopped. But in terms of negotiations, there isn't really any breakthrough or any different indications that would say that any of the two rival parties in Libya are willing to take a step back in order to reach an agreement.
Well, so let's go into more detail here then. What concessions do Libya's warring parties need to make to help find a solution to the conflict?
For Haftar, he has to accept that Faiz al-Sarraj is a civilian who might be in charge of a transitional cabinet, as he is recognized by the United Nations and he is the product of this Khairat agreement, the very first agreement between Libyan parties that everyone has agreed upon, but later the Eastern powers started to reject it. He also must recognize that political Islamist groups might be part of the political life in Libya, and the others must also accept that General Khalifa Haftar or any formal ally to any formal parties who were allies to Muammar al-Qaddafi, the former president, will be part of that life, and both of them must agree on a form of a unified military force that is the sole armed body in Libya, a unified police force that is the sole law enforcer in Libya. Other than that, Libya will keep on being divided by militias who rule independently and do not yield to any supreme power or any organized government that tries to maintain law and order in that nation.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. That was Adel El Marrouhi there in Cairo for us. An official delegation in Tunisia is emphasizing regional and international efforts to find solutions to the Libyan conflict. Members of the delegation include the Congolese foreign minister and the head of the African Union's Committee on Libya.
Kais Saied received on Friday at the Carthage Palace the Congolese president's envoy. The meeting focused on restoring the process of political settlement and avoiding the bloodshed of the brotherly Libyan people, while preserving the unity and sovereignty of Libya.
The worsening situation in Libya cannot leave anyone indifferent, as noted by the High-Level Committee on Libya, so the idea is that African countries speak with one voice.
A fortiori, le président du comité de haut niveau.
Africa and African countries must look in the same direction in the Libyan file.
Avec les pays africains.
Jean-Claude Gakoso delivered a message to the Tunisian president, inviting him to participate in the summit of the 10 African heads of state members of this committee, to be held on January 25, 2020 in Brazzaville.
La divergence d'approche.
The divergence of approach weakens the African position. Together, we must look beyond what is happening at the moment. The foreign interference that everyone deplores complicates the situation and distances us from the solution. We must work on a reconciliation conference between Libyans.
Que tout le monde déplore.
Tunisian authorities noted that the aim of the visit is to defend a common African position on the Libyan crisis.
We all insist on a peaceful settlement in Libya. The war is not the solution. The way out is in the hands of the Libyans. The bloodshed must end so that the Libyan people can decide their future.
The Tunisian president also reaffirmed his official position, calling for an urgent and peaceful solution to the crisis in Libya by involving the Libyans themselves. At the end of the meeting in Carthage, Congo's Minister for Foreign Affairs stressed the need to achieve appeasement and a ceasefire, as well as respect for international legality in Libya. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi is continuing his Africa tour. He arrived in Zimbabwe last night for a 3-day visit. He was received by his Zimbabwean counterpart, Sibusiso Moyo, in the capital Harare. Yi is scheduled to meet with Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa, who has suspended his 3-week annual leave. The two sides will discuss international challenges facing both sides, as well as how to further strengthen relations. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between the two countries. Yi's trip is part of a long-standing tradition for the Chinese foreign minister to make the African continent his first destination each year. Well, CGTN's Farai Mwakatuya brings us more on the Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to Zimbabwe. Farai, what is Foreign Minister Wang Yi's agenda during his visit to Zimbabwe?
Well, Karen, as you mentioned there, he arrived in the country late Saturday night. This morning, Sunday, he has toured some Chinese businesses operating in Zimbabwe. This afternoon, he is due to have his first official talks with his Zimbabwean counterpart, the foreign minister. Later in the evening, he'll be hosted to a dinner that is being hosted by the Vice President, retired General Constantino Chiwenga. That dinner will be held at the Mikos Hotel where we are currently. And tomorrow, Monday morning, he will meet Head of State Emmerson Mnangagwa before departing the country. On the agenda is how best to strengthen, to consolidate the relationship between the two countries, how best, certainly from a Zimbabwean side, to help Zimbabwe bolster its economy, to turn around its economy, but also how Zimbabwe can get support from China in terms of opening up international relations going forward. So a very packed program, but one that is set at assessing the current state of Chinese investments, Chinese projects, and also finding how best Zimbabwe can be helped going forward. Karen.
Well, let's go into a bit more detail there. What does Zimbabwe expect, aside from bolstering economic support, from Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit?
Well, I think the expectations from Zimbabwe are twofold. First of all, there are a number of projects and agreements that have been signed between the two countries over the years. Some of them are pending, some of them are yet to materialize, and so Zimbabwe would want to see those projects come to fruition, to get off the ground. China is the largest investor in Zimbabwe's infrastructure. It's undertaking refurbishment of the airport, building of a new parliament, refurbishment of power plants and electricity projects on the ground. So Zimbabwe would like to see more of those, would like to see those accelerated. The foreign minister also talked about trade. So it's not just, grants and loans that Zimbabwe is looking for. It's also looking to improve the trade between the two countries. It's already beyond $1 billion. Zimbabwe would like to see more of that. And so that might mean more of private sector investment. A lot of what we've been seeing currently has been government to government and state-led. Zimbabwe would like to see more private sector investment in sectors such as tourism, such as mining, such as agriculture. But I think also beyond the trade and economy, Zimbabwe would want an influential partner, an influential player in the global sphere, such as China, to help it ease some of the very difficult relations it has with other countries in the rest of the world. Zimbabwe is under sanctions and has been calling for the removal of those sanctions. And so if it can get the support of a country like China to help it, to persuade those powers, then Zimbabwe will also look to generate that sort of dividend from a visit like this.
And Farai, let's talk a little bit more about this relationship. How are relations between China and Zimbabwe, and what is the impact of Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit on this relationship?
Well, Karen, I think it's a very historical relationship, a very storied relationship that is celebrated between the two countries. Zimbabwe calls China its all-weather friend, and that is because China is one of the few countries in the world that stood by Zimbabwe throughout the challenges that it's had economically, politically, and socially. China has been there, has been ever present, and so those relations are very strong, but I think have been cemented even further in 2018 when this new dispensation took its first trip to China, when President Emerson Mnangagwa went there. The relationship was elevated to strategic, cooperating partner, strategic cooperating partnership, and that is the highest level between China and any state. And I think what Zimbabwe would now want to see is, to make the most of that relationship, to make sure that it gets practical benefits from that relationship, and it gets the help that it needs to get some out of some of the challenges that it is facing. So a very good relationship, one that is set to grow, one that I think officials here want to see grow in leaps and bounds, practically, economically, but also politically. And I think the visit that is being undertaken here is very significant. It shows that this relationship is not just on paper, it's not just things people say, but practically a high-ranking official has come to Zimbabwe to show the confidence, and I think that will be a huge boost to the administration here.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Farai. That was CGTN's Farai Makatuya there on the visit by Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi to Zimbabwe. We are now going to a break. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including anti-government protests in response to Iran's handling of plane crash erupt in Tehran. And Niger launches project to help build capacity in the fight against HIV/AIDS.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
First to Iran, where protests have erupted in the capital following the government's handling of the Ukrainian passenger jet crash. It comes after Iran's military said it unintentionally shot down the plane, which was bound for Kiev. The disaster occurred shortly after takeoff in Tehran, and all 176 people on board were killed. Well, outside universities, demonstrators were calling on the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, to resign or leave the country. Many of the crash victims were Iranian university students. Britain's ambassador to Iran had been detained for about an hour during the protests and accused of incitement. The UK is calling the crash a flagrant violation of international law. Well, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards are taking responsibility for the downing of the plane. The commander of the Guards Air Force gave details about what led to the decision to launch the strike.
Here's the Tehran area. Over here, there is the air defense missile system that was stationed here at midnight and was prepared. Down here is the Imam Khomeini Airport. When this plane took off, it flew in this direction and was hit at this point. Given the information that the defense systems operator was provided with, that we are in a war situation and cruise missiles had been fired, this person identified the plane as a cruise missile.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has spoken over the phone with his Iranian counterpart. Ukraine says Hassan Rouhani has apologized for the crash and promised those responsible will be brought to justice. As Jessica King reports, it comes as Ukraine mourns its citizens lost in the tragedy.
It comes as flowers and candles continue to be brought to Boryspil International Airport in Kiev, where a makeshift memorial has been set up for those who lost their lives. The head of Ukraine International Airlines said there was no warning of any threat to the aircraft.
From the beginning, we were sure that there was no opportunity for any technical problems or any kind of piloting mistakes. We have checked all of our regulatory documents. We checked them multiple times, and we were sure that it was an external factor that influenced the flight.
Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has offered his sincerest condolences after investigations concluded that missiles caused the horrific crash and the death of 176 innocent people. Ukraine's president has called for a full and thorough investigation.
I call on all international partners of Ukraine, the entire world community, to be as one and persevere in a full and final investigation into all the circumstances of this disaster.
Ukraine has sent nearly 50 investigators to the crash site in Tehran as they try to piece together what happened. President Zelensky says people need to be held accountable and compensation must be paid to the families affected. The tragedy has shocked the public, and for many it has recalled bitter memories of another flight, MH17, which was also downed by an anti-aircraft missile over Ukrainian territory in 2014. Ukraine maintains diplomatic relations with both Iran and the United States. The fallout has undoubtedly placed Ukraine in a difficult political position, but for now the focus is on public mourning and supporting the many people affected by this international tragedy. Jessica King, CGTN in Kiev.
Niger has launched a new HIV/AIDS project fully funded by China. This initiative will help the government with capacity building in the fight against a global pandemic. Let's now take a look.
Over 10 days, a health initiative brought HIV screening and awareness to 3 regions in Niger. It's part of a larger HIV/AIDS control program spearheaded not by the president but by his wife. In 2018, the First Lady of China and various African nations launched a joint initiative to build a future free of AIDS.
At the forum of the Sino-African Cooperation, the First Lady of Niger, Madame Aissata Yusufu, and her Chinese counterpart, the WTO Internet Ambassador for Tuberculosis and HIV, Madame Peng Li Yuan, launched a joint initiative on HIV and AIDS prevention.
I would like to take advantage of this moment to present my sincere thanks to the People's Republic of China, represented by the Ambassador of China, who is present in this place, and the First Lady of China, in the valuable support that China has given us.
The First Lady of Niger has long been committed to tackling the issue of HIV/AIDS. She's previously promised to use her influence to reduce mother-to-child transmission.
In Niger, since the discovery of the first case of AIDS in 1987, major efforts have been made by the government and its partners to prevent this disease and provide continuous care for people infected and affected by HIV. The estimated number of new HIV infections has been reduced by 70% in the last 6 years.
Chinese investment in Niger in the health sector remains diversified and varied. This includes a modern hospital entirely financed by Beijing. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
Now to Tanzania, and containing floods in the commercial capital Dar es Salaam has been a long-running challenge for authorities. Despite it being one of the fastest growing cities in Africa, its infrastructure struggles to deal with the increasing effects of climate change. The government is working on a new master plan to address water management challenges. CGTN's Daniel Kijo has more.
According to Global Climate Risk Index, Tanzania is the 26th most vulnerable country to climate risks. Its commercial capital, Dar es Salaam, takes a brunt of climate change effects. Heavy rainfall in recent years has resulted in severe flooding, causing household evacuations, school closures, and demolishing critical infrastructure. Mustafa Kilongola has been living in the Msimbazi Valley since 1974.
Usually, it's a lot of water, so when it floods, we seek refuge in high ground, where there is elevation. We sit there till the water subsides, Then we come back, clean our house, and keep living.
The city is home to over 5 million people. Due to rapid urbanization, 70% of the population lives in informal settlements that were built over natural drainage patterns. John Lubuva has been an urban planner for over 40 years. He says despite the city having a clear master plan, controlling the unplanned settlement has been a challenge.
Some of these developments, informal developments, have taken place in what used to be wetlands and water courses, therefore constricting the flow of stormwater from where it is generated to the ocean.
Flooding has had major socio-economic impacts on the city's population, including the destruction of infrastructure such as roads and bridges, reduced productivity, and even 9 deaths in 2018. The first city scheme for Dar es Salaam was put together in 1891 by the German colonial government. Since then, 3 more plans have been prepared in 1949, in 1968, and in 1979. The government now decided to review the most recent of those while producing a new plan for the city's growth and development until 2036 and beyond. John is part of the team working on a new master plan for the city, one that will take into account climate change effects like flooding. It aims to improve infrastructure and drainage systems.
We have to now to build our infrastructure with climate change in mind. We should not build drainage with capacity to address the existing situation. Maybe we should build with excess capacity to accommodate these extremities like what is happening right now.
As Dar es Salaam closes another chapter on flooding from a season of heavy rains, it's hoped that the government's new city plan can help battle the occurring harmful effects of climate change. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
All of the business news coming up for you after the break, including Nigerian nutritionist gets children to eat by making food fun. And experts gather in Tunisia to tackle waste management.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
Let's now head to Nigeria, where a trained nutritionist, Oluwatoyin Onitbanjo, is getting creative in her kitchen. Oluwatoyin was inspired by her fussy toddler who would only eat meals served in an artistic or animated way. She now runs August Secrets, a company that creates unique recipes for children to help curb malnutrition in Africa.
Oluwatoyin Onitbanjo is shopping for vegetables at a market in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. She runs August Secrets, a company she started in 2016 that develops healthy meals for children using locally sourced ingredients.
I'm here to shop for vegetables and fruits to make amazing, healthy foods for the kids. You know, they're on holidays, so it gives me time to make this healthy food for them again.
She likes to incorporate food art in her creations to attract and hold the attention of children who are mainly fussy feeders.
Food should not just be eaten, food should also be good to look at, you know, let alone talking about children who love to play. So when my son, you know, Jaden wasn't eating well, you know, it was, you know, the first point for me to start, you know, making creative food, and that worked. So that was what inspired me to make food art, and I've been doing it.
Having studied public and international relations, Oluwatoyin exploits the power of social media platforms to publicize her company by posting tantalizing photos of her meals to inspire her followers.
parenting has gone beyond just forcing children to do things. But when you're creative, when you take your time to really try to understand the reasons they do certain things, you'd be able to be a better parent. So that's why, for food, it's really important for me to, make the food fun. And then if you don't eat it after that time, then I can discipline you. But when I make the food really creative, it's likely that, the children would like it.
My mommy knows that I don't like vegetables, so she makes my food like this, and I love it.
My favorite recipes.
And based on such unbiased feedback, in 2017, she published her children's recipe book, August Secret's Simple Meal Plan, which showcases unique and fun meals for children aged between 6 months and 5 years. The book has sold over 5,000 copies.
I know it's really hard. A lot of moms tell me, no, I've done everything. But the truth is, it's not all the time. You need to try, or you don't need to use your experience for your first child to judge your second child. The most important thing children need to see, they don't need to see perfect parents. They only need to see a parent who is making an effort. The moment they see that you're making an effort, today, 2 days after, 3 days after, you'll be amazed at how they'll start taking their healthy food after some time. It's ready to be taken off.
Oluwatoyin also runs a kitchen where she produces packaged meals and cereals for children sold in Nigeria, Ghana, the UK and the United States. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
Electronics engineering graduate Huda Ben Romtan breeds snails on her farm in Tunisia. She's targeting new demand for the mollusks. The mucus is used in skincare products and the meat is eaten for its high nutritional value. CTTN's Alexandria Magella has more.
When Tunisian entrepreneur Huda Ben Romtan left her job after a decade, she was going for something much slower.
I studied electrical engineering and I worked at a private communication company for 12 years in administration. Then I decided to open up my own business, but in agriculture instead of administration. I chose snail breeding in 2014, but faced a lot of difficulties. But I tried to overcome them over the years and improve the business. I started with extracting the mucus from the snails, a product that drew a lot of interest from clients. After extracting the mucus, the snails are used for cooking.
The electronics engineering graduate was eyeing the emerging market for mollusks in Tunisia. While many may find breeding snails somewhat icky, Romtan has no problem touching the little creatures that have become her source of income. Her $10,000 project does not require heavy manpower.
This is a snail's mating room. We choose the ones that are ready for mating and can lay eggs. They stay in here for 3 months, from September to December. We provide them with food and water in a 20 degrees Celsius room. We give them an atmosphere similar to spring, so they can mate, and most of them lay eggs.
While their meat can make for a delicious meal, their mucus can be used to produce beauty products. The mucus is extracted by placing the snail in a bowl of salt and vinegar mixture for 10 minutes before being sold to clients who use it in skincare products.
After studying snail mucus for 4 years due to its richness in hyaluronic acid, collagen, and vitamin E, we have decided to produce a lotion that includes other vegetable oils. We made the lotion and found that it was very effective in moisturizing and brightening the face, as well as fighting wrinkles and dark circles under the eyes. It has been very successful among customers.
Snail meat is said to be nutritious. It is low in cholesterol and rich in proteins, making it a popular delicacy in various cultures. Ben Romtan says she sources the snails from the Ministry of Agriculture, which supports her and tens of other local producers as part of an initiative aimed at helping local Tunisian producers breed, market, sell, and export snails.
We are a Tunisian restaurant and we want to support Tunisian products. We have introduced snail to our menu and it has been very successful. We introduced it through our bread bowl sandwich, which includes snail and herbal sauce, and customers really love it, and many of them come to order it.
The price of an average snail beauty product ranges between $15 to $25. After selling the mucus extract to clients like Kriya, Ben Romtan cleans the snail's meat and readies it for cooking. She sells a box of 10 snails for $3.50. While Ben Romtan only sells her products locally, others export their produce to European markets, mostly Italy. Alexandria Majala for CGTN.
Well, staying in the country, the African Consortium on Waste Management has been created in Tunisia. Officials and experts from many African countries gathered in the capital, Tunis, to examine the challenges. Experts also discussed innovative solutions to waste management in Africa.
The Tunisian CEO of the German-Swiss African Consortium will set up 5 waste processing and transformation units in coastal regions in the North African country.
By uniting our expertise, we will process and manage municipal solid waste, as well as toxic or hazardous waste from hospitals and the petrochemical industries, which represent potential threats to public health and the environment.
The new units will be established in 7 African countries to produce substitute or refuse-derived fuel, RDF. Tunisia will provide equipment to set up the recycling plants.
This is an economic and environmental project which is part of the effort to fight global warming. We'll manage and recycle waste in order to valorize it by producing electrical energy and fertilizer.
The African Consortium plans to set up factories in Algeria to recycle waste. This sector will have a direct impact on the economy and create thousands of jobs in the North African country.
Waste treatment was not a consideration in the past. Tons of waste were buried instead. There was no concrete waste recycling system or program. Waste collectors like municipalities practiced landfill. Consequently, Algeria had enormous or astronomical quantities of waste that should be extracted, sorted and recycled.
The Swiss-German and African group announced in June 2013 the creation of 25 waste recycling centers in Tunisia. The project was not carried out due to social instability. This project is now considered as a top priority for the new government. Experts assert that the new recycling units in Tunisia and other African countries will help cut the expenses of cement plants and building materials companies by 30%. The modern units will transform waste into energy to be reused in energy-intensive industries. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
To South Africa now, where in line with the outcomes of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, the government of Qinghai province in China is holding an ethnic cultural exhibition in Johannesburg. The exhibition seeks to build a community of cultural prosperity between China and South Africa. CGTN's Yolesa Njamela has the details.
The exhibition showcases the picturesque scenery of the vast Qinghai province, further showing folk customs and the remarkable achievements the province has attained in socio-economic development.
Qinghai is a so beautiful place and so many things, worth to see. So I think this is a very good opportunity for the delegation to bring this opportunity to us. And let us know Qinghai and understand Qinghai better.
The display also showcases ecological conservation, cultural heritage protection, and ethnic unity. The exhibition also serves as part of an ongoing effort to enhance people-to-people relations and cooperations between the communities of the two countries.
Especially the similarities we can compare with the Institute and the places like mining and everything. So we want more and more of the South African people to come to Qinghai and to make more of these experiences in the future and working together, especially to highlight the Qinghai natural, cultural and minority heritage to South Africa. And it's very terrific for us to particularly be here.
Shanghai is a landlocked province in northwestern China. Named after Shanghai Lake, the largest lake in China, Shanghai is one of the least populated provinces in China. In fact, the province has the second smallest population out of all the Chinese provinces, and it prides itself in having a highly diverse population. Yudi Sanjamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
The Democratic Republic of Congo is renowned for its distinctive music and art. The capital, Kinshasa, is home to dozens of internationally recognized artists. Many of them hone their craft in a neighborhood known as Matonge. CGTN's Chris Ochemringa visited the area to find out more.
The sounds of legendary Congolese musician Papa Wemba waft through the evening breeze in Kinshasa. Wemba died in 2016 during a performance in Ivory Coast, but his memory lives on. It's here in the Matonge neighborhood where Papa Wemba and many other Congolese musicians began their careers. This group of performing artists is on a mission of conserving the area's rich history.
Matonge Lisolo is a performance that's meant to promote our arts and culture. We want historians and students to learn about our unique art.
We created these skits to preserve our history and culture for future generations.
Life is tough for many Congolese due to the lack of jobs. Some estimates put youth unemployment at 90%. And so music and drama offers solace for many of them.
We grew up in this neighborhood with famous musicians like Papa Wemba, who taught us about the ideology of Matonge. It's about living life to the fullest and dressing well.
Performances like these are meant to show the resilience and fortitude of the Congolese, despite the challenges they go through. Matonge neighborhood is known for its bustling nightlife. It has produced many famous Congolese musicians and visual artists. The organizers of this event hope its reputation will be maintained for generations. Chris Ochemringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
All of the sports news coming up for you after the break, including